Dear friends, what can we expect when we get a package like this for review? Well, some Swedish death metal obviously. This is by a band called Darkened. Darkened, that is pronunciation, with their latest MCD called Into the Blackness. So what is this lump of cloth then? Well, it's a beautiful t-shirt with a nice cover art by the band. And also, it's white, black and white. Not too often you get things like that. But without further ado, let's take a look on this one and check out the review. Now, I don't really know whether I should call this band Darkened in the Swedish way or Darkened in sort of a British way, or just Darkened, because this band is very international, featuring band members from United States of America, Canada, Sweden, Great Britain. It gets quite confusing how these guys actually manage to rehearse. But no fear, Darkened is actually very nicely done, considering that this band already started 2018, so quite much in a baby age. They have finished quite nice EP here. And once again, let's take a look at this beautiful detailed cover with skeletal head filled with sort of, I don't know, roots, plantation, whatever. And that is also featured on the t-shirt I just showed you. 4 songs, including intro, that is about 15 minutes in total. Now let's take a look at this lineup once more. These guitar players, Hempa and Linus, they are from Sweden. And Andy Whale, of course, known for his work with Bother and Memoriam. And then we have Gord Olson and Daryl Cahan from Northern America. All these guys actually are very veteran players. They have multiple bands, so none of these guys are actually first timers, and you can pretty much hear that. Here are the lyrics for your reading pleasure. Now, let's take a look at the CD. Very simple, released by Norwegian Edged Circle label, which is actually very nice when it comes to extreme metal, trash, black, and death metal. And that it is what it is, death metal. Now that we've gone through the actual CD, let's talk about the music. Now, usually Swedish type of death metal, when it comes to mind, is mentioned along with the names Entombed, Grave, Dismember, Carnage, At the Gates, and so forth. Grave and all that stuff. So we are all pretty familiar, at least if we are familiar with Swedish death metal, that is, with those bands that have come out throughout the years, and we know how the so-called Sunlight sound, that Sunlight Studio sound actually sounds like. It's heavy and it's done with Boss HM2 pedal and all that stuff. That's kind of a basic stuff we all need to know about Swedish death metal. But what happens when a Swedish death metal band, or international death metal band with Swedish guitar players, manage to sound quite British? It's more like, I didn't see that one coming. Now, it's an interesting thing because Darkened is, in my opinion, very much a Swedish band sounding like a British one. Then again, when you consider that it's a very international band, it is not so big a surprise. Now, the funny thing is, when I mentioned, and as you noticed, Andy Whale being the drummer, he's not the only thing sounding very both throwerish or memoriamish on this album, because this actually reminds me on so many riff levels like those two bands. Then again, it's also different. Now, Darkened has synths on the background, which then again creates this kind of a, not unique baby, but original vibe that it's not just some British death metal band. Not that British death metal bands sound too much like each other. I mean, come on, Carcass, Volthor, Benediction, etc. Napalm Death, even when they were playing death metal, they sound pretty different despite having sort of a British atmosphere. Anyway, my point here is Darkened makes this Swedish or international Swedish thing sound quite original, and I think that's quite nice. Then again, it also sounds like kind of a traditional and kind of a old-fashioned even, but not in a bad way. Now, production is top-notch, even though I still feel like those drums are maybe too much over the top. This is of course a matter of mixing table preferences. Some people want to kind of a drums to just roll over, whereas I want to keep them heavy and pounding, but still more on the background. But overall sound, guitars, drums, very very nice done, and also those growling vocals. They are nothing kind of unique snowflake stuff, but they deliver like you're supposed to deliver death metal growling. So I think Darkness is very very nicely like overall done, uh, but still it's not like the best of the best, because I think the band is still kind of figuring out where they want to go, how they want to progress, how they want to evolve with their music. But they have the basic structure right there. Solid death metal without not too many stupid gimmicks or anything like that. And I think the synth is actually something nice there. I think it will be a kind of a culture shock to some people. They synth death metal, but then again, bands like Nocturnus with the Key album that already presented that, and since that we have heard multiple albums with keyboards and all that stuff. And by the way, they are not dominating. They are very much on the background. For example, at first I didn't even pay attention to them, but when I noticed then I was like, okay, they actually fit the mood quite nicely. So in conclusion, I want to say that Into the Blackness is nice EP, and since it's EP, it's very nice to kind of start with that before proceeding to actual full album. It's just 15 minutes of solid death metal, and there you have it with nice production. Go check out the samples; they are already out online. And this album was released, if I recall correctly, in August, so it's already available for your buying and listening pleasure. Have a good weekend or whatever you're doing. Take care.